I tell you this to start building a plan today, start investing today, start taking care of yourself today, and don't delay gratification. Start doing the things that you want to in life today.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you are enjoying the show and get some great value from our guests like the one we have today, I want you to give us some honest feedback and leave us a rating and review. Listen, if this is your first time listening or you just haven't done so, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, today we've got a great show. We're going to be talking to Brandon Cobb. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Now, Brandon Cobb is the owner of HBG Capital, and he was a former medical device sales rep before becoming a fund manager in Nashville, Tennessee, annually managing $22 million of new first-time home buyer housing and build-to-rent communities. Now, he was featured on the cover of REI Wealth magazine, Realty 411 magazine, and has been published in Forbes magazine. Let's welcome to the show, Brandon Cobb.
Hey, John, it's a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Brandon, great to have you on. I went over your bio and background at a very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Yeah, so right now we focus on entry-level housing right here in Middle Tennessee. It means a lot of things, but when I say entry-level housing, I mean we really like that first-time home buyer housing. But once upon a time, that wasn't the case. I actually had no desire to get in real estate. I had no desire to start my own business. You know, like a lot of young bucks in their early 20s, I did everything society told me to do. I played it safe, got a nice corporate big safe career with a medical device sales company. Had the 401k, the health benefits, had the company car, the gas card. And, you know, like a lot of people, I knew the job was a means to an end. I knew that I didn't want to do it forever. I was going to save my money. I wanted freedom eventually, time freedom to do the things that I wanted with people that I wanted when I wanted. And you know, like a lot of guys in their young 20s, I didn't want to be tied down forever. I wanted to build an extraordinary life where I had no regrets. And most importantly, I just wanted to make my family proud. And so I had this cool job wearing scrubs every day, rubbing shoulders with orthopedic surgeons. And I really loved what I did. I think what I love most about my job was the intrinsic satisfaction of like helping patients every single day. And so I never really had this drive to go and do something different. I was very fulfilled by what I did. And again, I was doing everything society told me I should do. Like I was a penny pincher, man. You know, my dad, he would be like, "Hey, do not buy that iPhone app. You do not need that." This was when iPhone apps were like all the new rage and they were only 99 cents and you'd buy them. He's like, "Don't buy that. Save your money." I mean, I really grew up in an environment where I felt ashamed to spend money. And so I was on this road and knew that, hey, you know, this was a means to an ends until one sunny afternoon. It was Friday, 4 p.m. It was at the Starbucks over in West End. My boss calls me in on a day where couldn't have gone better. Best possible day a sales rep could have had. New products were getting purchased. Big capital equipment sales were about to happen. And before I could get it out of my mouth on how great of a day I had, my boss fires me. And I remember feeling shocked because I was hustling. I was grinding. I'd just gotten all these prestigious, Rookie of the Year sales awards. What did I do wrong? I could not think like, what was I doing wrong? And I forget the words that he told me were, "Brandon, we no longer think that you're a fit for us." And my boss at the time was this guy that I looked up to. He was like a mentor to me. Like I wanted to be him. And I would tell him that. I'd be like, I want your job one day. And, he really took me under his wing and taught me things. And for him to tell me that, I mean, it hurt, right? It was like hearing those words from like a father figure. And then he said the words, and I hope you learned something from this. And that day, I don't know if you're young and you're early on in your career, you attach your identity to that career. It's who you are. And so I wasn't just losing a job, I was losing my identity, my sense of self. Like I didn't know who I was after that, after he let me go. And honestly, I kind of felt like I was being abandoned at the time. And that's when I learned something that stuck with me for the rest of my life, which was nobody's going to look out for my financial well being but me. You can be as loyal as you want to a company, put the blood, sweat, and tears, climb the corporate ladder, whatever it is. At the end of the day, that company has to do whatever's best for the company. And for whatever reason that day it was letting me go. So I learned that nobody was going to look out for my financial well-being with me. And that kind of started this journey where I was like, okay, let's give this whole entrepreneur thing a shot. uh, Tried to do a medical device sales course on how to train people to get into it. That failed. Started a life coaching business because I thought I wanted to be the next Tony Robbins. And turns out people don't want to take life coaching advice from a 26-year-old. Who'd have thought? Um, had an online motivational blog that failed. And then I discovered real estate. And real estate was the first thing that really took off for me. And as soon as I saw the silver lining, like I could actually make some money with this, I popped off all the other business ideas and I just focused on that one. And at first, when I started real estate, like a lot of people, I kind of felt like a fraud. When you go out and meet people and they ask, "Hey, what do you do?" I'd be like, "Well, I'm a business owner. I own my own business." You just feel like a fraud because you haven't really made any money yet, but like that's kind of what you're doing. And I remember feeling like I was an idiot hiring people because I'm like, what are they going to think of me? I don't really know what I'm doing yet. And I'm just like, they're like, everybody that I was interviewing was like above me. I was very insecure about hiring people. You know, um, I had a lot of external struggles. I drained all my retirement accounts to try to bootstrap my business. Went into about $111,000 of credit card debt, and I was wearing like all the hats in the company. And I remember there was one point where I didn't know if I could do it anymore, but I pushed through. I ended up doing over 187 transactions in real estate and ended up building this amazing business to where I got to today. And I mean, let me tell you, all the hardships were totally worth it. Now I knew that I wanted to use real estate as a tool to build the life I want. And so now I get to cook dinner for my wife every night. I cook her breakfast. We have coffee every morning. I do 6 weeks a year of traveling where I go on these just life-changing bucket list trips with my family members. My mom's a history teacher, and so she didn't make a lot of money when I grew up. And so now we always go somewhere every year historic that she's taught about for 30 years but never had the money to go do. Like we're going to go to see the Alamo in San Antonio in a few weeks. I do these annual bucket list trips with my brother and sister. We're going to Sedona, Arizona, like which is somewhere that my sister's always wanted to travel. And same thing, like with my dad. I take him on trips that he's always wanted to do, but never really had the time or the money to afford. He loves bourbon. We took him on the bourbon trail in Kentucky last year. And so I've been able to build this really amazing life that I'm really proud to say I've got the time freedom to do. And I tell you this because I don't want listeners spending 20, 30 years postponing gratification, going, hey, I'll wait one day where I've got tons of money or I'm retired to start doing all these fun things. Or you work in a job thinking that you're going to climb the corporate ladder and this is a means to end. And then you just get fired one day and you don't have a plan. Like I tell you this to start building a plan today, start investing today, start taking care of yourself today, and don't delay gratification. Start doing the things that you want to in life today. Don't wait.
Brandon, I love hearing your story, right? Just listening to you talk about, going to school, doing what, corporate America and just society tells you to do, getting a great job in the medical device sales arena, thriving in that space until you get surprised. And we're going to come back there. But ultimately, you try to put your hand in different entrepreneurial endeavors that didn't work out. You tried being a coach, that didn't work out. You tried learning how to teach other people how to be in medical device sales. That didn't work out. And ultimately, you landed on real estate, and that allowed you to create a lifestyle where you had more power, more control, and you could thrive. You said two things that I want to come back to, right? Let's start with the job because as I was listening to your story, you mentioned how shocked you were because on that Friday at 4 o'clock, you had a great day. You crushed it on sales. You had a nice pipeline set up. You're excited to talk to your boss, and you get this abrupt news that you were going to be fired. And what I heard you say was you had admiration and respect for your boss. He was a mentor. You looked up to him. You wanted to be like him. And the feedback you got was that you were fired, but also that I hope you learned something. As you reflect back, was there something that you were doing that they didn't like? I mean, the words you use were, we no longer think you're a fit for us. So this doesn't feel like a layoff where it's just, hey, we got to cut 10% of our staff. This seems like they specifically wanted to fire you. Why? Like what happened as you reflect back? What do you think was the disconnect there?
You know, if I'm being honest, my boss and I, for whatever reason, I don't know that I was the cultural fit that he was looking for. I don't know why, but I really wanted to impress him, and I wanted to make him a lot of money, and I told him that. And for whatever reason, whenever I was around him, I was always walking on eggshells and kind of felt nervous. And I don't know why. I think he sensed that, right? If I were to put it into a feeling, if you've been a younger guy and you're ever around a pretty girl that you really like, and you're still developing like you're confident, that's kind of sort of how I describe it. As weird as that is, obviously I didn't have like a crush on him or anything like that, but you're just not acting with complete, you're not genuine just because you're so kind of flustered. And so him and I, like, there was always some kind of friction point there. It was like no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't just quite get to the point where I could please him and make him proud. I wanted to, and I don't know what it was. I think it was just a culture fit. I think our personalities kind of clashed a little bit, and he felt that. Um, and at the time, as hard as I was working in medical device sales, I had these prestigious sales awards, and I was hustling, man. Like, it was my job, but I could tell that I was probably not the guy that was really going to blow it out of the water. Medical device sales was my dream job, and I really wanted to do that. But that type of sale, I was just not organically equipped to handle it. When I say organically equipped to handle it, in medical device sales, you've got to build these very deep, deep relationships with the surgeons. That's how you get the business. I was not great at that. I'm very good at first impressions. I'm very good at, sales. And, like, we've got a lot of people that we sell a lot of services to, a lot of real estate to. And I'm good at those shorter sell cycles, those good first impressions, not necessarily the longer sell cycles of the very, very deep, deep relationships. And so I kind of knew deep down that, this probably wasn't for me, unfortunately. And I think
Yeah.
that also played a part into why
Yeah.
he let me go. And so I think that's what he might have been alluding to. I was too shocked at the time to ask him why he thought that I wasn't fit, or what do you think I'm going to learn from this? I mean, I was just shocked, and I could barely speak, when it was happening to me.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that because it's there are times where you see the writing on the wall and you know it's coming or you recognize this isn't a fit. And there are times where you truly are surprised and it pushes you to go on a journey. And I love that you talked about not just young people, but for most people, a lot of our identity is tied up in what we do. It's the first
Mm.
question people ask. Oh, hey, John,
What do
nice
you
to
do?
meet you. What do you do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the first thing people ask. And it's not intended to be negative, but it is a way people size up your value. And I was watching some video and this guy was saying, listen, children, even women, um, like they can be loved unconditionally, not necessarily based on their value. But men, it's based on value. How much value do you bring to the table? And
Yeah.
that equates to how much maybe respect you get or love you get. And fair and unfair, there's a lot of truth to that. So I can understand how that hurt you when you realize that that was taken away and you now have to go out and do some soul searching to figure out who you are. I want to fast forward now because you talked about the different entrepreneurial tasks that you tried out, ultimately landing on real estate. When you say real estate, did you launch a brokerage? Because you talked about, you know, creating this company, but it wasn't quite clear what the company actually is or does. And you talked about hiring employees And I'm curious, did you have the revenue for these employees at this time, or were you just kind of forecasting and hoping that you would eventually generate the revenue to sustain the staff you were creating?
1 year in, it was an army of 1 to 2. I had a business partner. I knew I wanted a mentor. I knew I didn't want to have to like try to figure things out. So I was going to a lot of meetups. Met a guy, Vagif Sadov, one of my mentors, business partners to this day. We're still been in business. He's one of my best friends, and we have fun every single day with what we do. Met him. He was looking to get a wholesaling house flipping operation on its feet. He had that out in Colorado Springs. His girlfriend, now wife at the time, was in Nashville, Tennessee. She lived there. And so he was coming here, quite frankly, want to get an operation up. And so I said, what is it that you're trying to do? And how can I be the sweat equity to get us there? And so we started flipping and wholesaling houses. And really, that was me going around and I was putting up all those "We Buy Houses" signs up on telephone poles, hustling. I had a device that put it like 8, 9 feet up and would like staple it to the telephone pole. I was getting calls from the police saying, "You're going to go to jail if you don't take these signs down." I'm freaking out going, "Oh my God, I'm going to go to jail." I thought I could do what these people were telling me to do to make it happen. And I got a call off one of those signs from a guy facing foreclosure. And if he didn't sell his house in like 2 weeks, like he was going to lose it. And he had all this equity. And I sold all my retirement accounts immediately, paid the penalty, didn't care. Again, I was like 27 at the time, bought his house for $85,000, put $10,000 into it and sold it for 130. And I had given myself a 6 month ultimatum from when I got fired and said, hey, if you don't figure out how to make money in the 6 month time frame, worst case scenario, you can just go back and get a job. You can go hop back into the workforce. I was okay with the worst case scenario. And if you can imagine that scene in Batman where the Joker is meeting with the mafia and he slides down the big pile of money, takes the gasoline, throws it on it, and burns the money. That's what we did with that first, $30,000 we made on that house flip. Like we just dumped it into marketing dollars, and that started producing more and more deals. And for those first 2 years, I didn't even pay myself. Um, and it wasn't until we just kept dumping money back into the business and investing in it. The first 4 years, I didn't hardly make anything. And that reinvestment back in the company is what allowed us to really grow and scale. And so we started flipping houses and then we started building houses because it was more profitable. And then we started doing developments because when you're spread out doing, 20 new builds all over the place, you go, man, wouldn't it be easier to do all of them in the same area? Like, wow, holy cow, this would be so easy if the whole team just had to show up to 1 or 2 spots every day. And so that led us to going out, which is now our whole investment thesis, which is entry level housing, first time home buyer housing, a $2,000 to $2,500 per month mortgage. That's what we go and create because that's what the market needs. That first time home buyer housing right now, you've got 4 to 6 million homes short, whatever you call it. The majority of those are entry level housing. You've got over 33% of the home buying population, which are millennials, that are having kids. They want to buy a home, but they can't. And less than 10% of the homes being built are those entry level housing. So I don't have to be a genius to see that there's a huge supply and demand imbalance there. So we started going to the local municipalities and saying, hey, we're a new developer in town. We want to be an asset. We want to add value to the community. What's missing? What's lacking in the community? What do you guys want? We pulled a chair up on the same side of the table as the planning commission, the mayor, whoever wanted to speak to us or would speak to us, and said, let's build something together. And so we started going out to the parcels where they're like, hey, this is not the highest and best use of this area. We'd like to see this in this particular area. And we became an asset to help the city build the vision that they wanted. And so for us now, our whole compelling value add strategy is kind of similar to multifamily, where you buy the asset, you renovate it, you force appreciate rents, and you force appreciate the equity. We do the same thing, except we do it while it's under contract. So we go put the land under contract. Could be for an entry level housing community, could be for multifamily, could be for commercial. And while it's under contract, we get it approved for that development. And that does something magical. It makes it worth a lot more money. So we take farmland and we turn it into entry-level housing communities before we buy it. And so after we've force appreciated that land by rezoning it for higher density, turning it into an approved community, that's when we go to our investor base and we say, hey, look, we've got a really good deal. Let's go in on this together. And then from there, we've got 3 exit strategies. We can talk about that, later or whatever. But that's the premise. That's where it all starts. The foundation is the land. Whoever controls the land controls the real estate, and we work with the city to force appreciate that land.
What markets are you in?
Nashville, Tennessee, and
All right,
that's
so this
it.
is in Nashville, so we'll talk about that. You gave a couple things that are really phenomenal insights, and I want to make sure that we highlight this. First of all, for those folks who are thinking about that change, you want to scale your portfolio, but you got a day job, it's treating you well, you're trying to figure out when to make that shift. I love that you gave yourself a 6-month time frame. You faced the hardship of being fired from your job. You didn't immediately just go and apply for a new job. You said, you know what? Let me try a couple things. Let me see if I can make money doing something else and have more control. You gave yourself that 6-month time frame. You were able to get that first project, that flip project done, where you bought it for 85,000, put 10K into it, and then sold it for 130K. Took those funds and put it in marketing. Even before that, you talked about finding somebody who was a mentor, more experienced, and said, "How can I be the sweat equity for your vision?" And it really takes some humility to plug into what someone else is doing and use that as a means to grow as opposed to trying to do it by yourself. I think one mistake I see so many investors make is they're trying to, listen to a guy like you or a guy like me, and they try to do that by themselves. No one who is successful has done it by themselves. There's a mentor, coaches, partners, investors, property managers, contractors. Like, you need a team. If you're going to build a real business, a scalable business that allows you to have freedom and flexibility to live life on your own terms, you need people. And you're probably not going to be that person out of the gate. So humbling yourself and being a number two to someone else's, vision is probably an excellent way to get started. So I love the fact that you did that and you highlighted that. The last thing that I wanted to call out here is you recognize an opportunity. You realize that this entry level housing, there was a gap. There's only 10% of the new construction that's on the market. People need places where, the mortgage payment is $2,500 or less, not necessarily these $4,500 or $5,000 mortgages, because that's unaffordable for a lot of people. So you decided, hey, we're going to create this opportunity, but we're going to partner with the city. We're going to sit down with the planning commission. We're going to sit down with these key stakeholders, understand what they're looking for. And by doing that, you have a built-in partnership. So zoning becomes easier, getting anything you need from the city or the regulatory items, that becomes so much easier because you have the partnership, you have the connections. You can reach out and say, hey, here's something we're working on. I spoke to such and such over at this department. Can you help me out? That's going to make your life so much easier to approach it that way. Now, you talked about entry level housing and building kind of communities as opposed to maybe investing in multifamily or investing in just single family houses that are more scattered, more of a scattered site investment. Can you talk to me more about just the strategy of locking in and focusing on, kind of new communities and some of the challenges you face in building new communities?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of challenges. We've got 3 main exit strategies, and we've been working on a 4th. And one of the reasons why I feel very blessed to be in our market that we're in the specific strategy that we use is there's so many exits, right? Everybody will tell you, hey, make sure you got multiple exit strategies. But what does that actually look like? And so we can do one of 4 things after we've got this land approved. One is we purchase it and we can just land bank it where we own it outright with our investor partners. Nobody can call the note due. We can sit and hold that puppy for as long as we want. We typically do this for 2 years or less. One of the reasons why we would land blanket is if there's a ton of development around it, we've already force appreciated it by getting it approved. And so we've got a ton of equity there. We know that if we sit on it and wait for all these other developments to finish and sell, it's going to be worth even more. And so that's one option that we can do because we've got like 1,600 units in the pipeline. There's no way I'm going to build 1,600 houses. I'm not a national home builder, right? I'm not going to develop 1,600 lots. And so we've got to sell the paper. We've got to do some land banking sometimes. Can't develop everything. So that's Exit strategy number one is to land bank it, sell it to another developer. Exit strategy number two is when a Lennar or a DR Horton, one of these national home builders, says, hey, we really like this piece of land. We'd be interested in buying the finished, ready to build lots from you for 85,000 a lot. I'll give you an example. Right now, we're developing 75 lots for a big builder, and we're contracted to sell those as soon as they're done. So before we even stick a shovel in the ground, all the lots are pre-sold. And we go in with our investor partners and we will put the roads, the utilities, the infrastructure, clean up the land, and basically make it ready to build houses. And we sell those approved lots to the builder. That's exit strategy number two.
Hey, let's
And the
Brandon,
third, yep,
real quick on that second one. So what you're saying is you're not building the houses, but you're building everything needed in that community for the houses to be built, the roads, the plumbing. Like, can you just elaborate on that point just a little bit more about what you're actually creating and building when you sell it to that national developer?
yeah, imagine a neighborhood without the houses, the roads, the water, the sewer, the flat lots that are ready to be built. You basically have an empty neighborhood. Most builders, believe it or not, are not doing that. It's a developer. So people get developer and builder confused sometimes. A developer is someone who develops the land and sells it to the builder who builds the houses. And so you can think of it as you've got horizontal construction, everything that has to happen flat in the ground, and then you got vertical construction, everything that has to go up. A developer does all of the horizontal construction, a builder does all the vertical.
I love it. Thank you for clarifying that point. That's a great way for everyone to understand it because I think those terms seem interchangeable to investors who aren't in this space.
Yeah.
But your point there, a developer is doing the horizontal, putting in the roads, putting in, the pipes and all that stuff. The builder is actually, creating the house, the physical structure that most people see. All right, that was the second one. So you're talking about the third exit strategy next.
Yeah, and the third is we can actually be the builder and build the homes on it. So we've built quite a few homes here in this market, and so depending on the area, we can actually go in and actually build these homes. And then the fourth exit strategy, and we were really gung ho on this before rates went up, which is build to rent. And so we want to be in a position where we can actually, especially with our townhome products, be able to build and actually rent out the product base. So it gives us multiple exit strategies in the event that you get a COVID virus that changes everything, or a dramatic black swan interest rate rise event. You've got multiple options at your disposal.
And Brandon, I think that's really savvy just to think about it, right? So you're talking about those four exit strategies. One, you can land bank it where you're basically taking it, you're going to wait, right? You've already got it approved for some sort of development, but you're not doing any of that work. You're going to wait, you're going to let other developments happen, take place, drive up the equity because of the other developments in that area, and then sell it. The second strategy was you become the developer where you're going to build out the roads, you're going to build out the sewer system, you're going to build out the water systems, and it's there, but then you're going to sell it to a builder themselves who will actually build the homes. And then the third, you do them both, right? You're the developer and the builder. You're building those homes and then you sell those to those end users. And then that fourth strategy is you're the developer, you're the builder, but you also now become the quote unquote landlord where you're going to do build for rent. You're now putting in property management and taking and collecting those fees. So, four really great strategies of different ways to maximize your value once you control that land. And the thing that really stands out to me is you have so many options, but so much flexibility when you own the land because you can keep
Yeah.
monitoring the market and seeing, okay, hey, how much value do you think this is going to go up? How much opportunity is there? And then you can decide which strategy makes sense. And you can always pivot, right? Well, you can always pivot to another strategy if you think the value is there. Talk to me from an LP standpoint, right? So, from our passive investors, the folks who are looking to invest in these kind of deals, what should we be looking out for? And at what stage should we consider investing? Because as you mentioned, if you're at that first stage, well, it could be a year, 2 years or so before there's any kind of revenue that's coming into an investment like that. So talk to me more about what this looks like as an LP investor.
Yeah. So there's a few things, right? Let's talk about each exit strategy. So number one, let's say that you're just going to land bank because everything is predicated on that value add strategy before you buy it. That is the most important thing about what we do, right? Because if you buy the land before you have the approvals in place, you're taking a big risk if if the land is not currently worth what it is. So if you can buy it and get your money in it and it doesn't get approved, but you're still able to get your money out of it, I would take that risk personally, right? But we will not. A lot of times, our value, our very our compelling proposition to sellers of these land, and the reason we have such a high success rate is we're paying them so much more for the land than what it's currently worth. And the reason we're able to do that is because we force appreciate the property through that rezone process, getting it approved for communities through the entitlement process. And so it's very easy to go to somebody and say, hey, you get a piece of land that's worth $400,000 or $500,000. If we could offer you $1 million for it, would you be interested? And they're always interested because they're like, well, how are you going to do that? And then we explain how we're going to do it. So it's very important to kind of understand that. So because of that, we would never buy it before the approvals are in place. There's too much risk. The city could not approve it. There could be a moratorium on something. You don't know what the development costs are. As an LP investor, here's what you want to see. Number one is you have a final plat approved. The city and state have stamped it and said, this is approved. You are good to go. If you've got that final plat approval with the city stamp and the state stamp, it is approved. The value is there. The second thing you want to see is a budget. You want to see actual bids that the sponsor or operator has collected to show what the budget is, because just because you got approved development doesn't mean it's a deal. You want to make sure you got your costs in place on what to do on that development. That's the second thing. And the third, you want to know what the value is. Cool. We know what we're buying it for. We know what it's going to cost to develop. What can we sell it for? It's just like flipping a house or just like a multifamily unit. It's the same thing. What's your acquisition? What's your cost? What can you sell it for? And you want to make sure there's a lot of margin. I mentioned that we were developing 75 home sites. We're under contract with that builder who's put down a lot of earnest money. We locked them in at $85,000 a lot. We bought it for $9,000 a lot. We spent $51,000 a lot. So our all-in costs are $60,000. We're selling it for $85,000. And what I tell investors, and one of the biggest mistakes I think I see limited partners make, and I'm a limited partner in a bunch of different deals. I like investing in multifamily. I love, what Cosman Capital invests in. I love the depreciation benefits. Most investors don't have a good understanding of what would have to happen for them to lose money or them to have a break-even point in their capital. And so for our deals on everyone, what I outline is, hey, the value of the lot is 85. The cost is 60. You'd have to see the lot cost or value go from 85 down to 60. That's like a 25, 30% loss of value just to break even. Right. And so that's downside protection. That's what we build into every deal. And so those are the kind of deals we really like. We like those margins a lot. Those are the kind of deals that we want to do.
And at that point, too, so well, let me recap what you said. You said, first of all, as an LP investor, you want to make sure this thing is actually going to be approved, right? The value comes in having it approved, not just, hey, there's this land that we're going to buy. So that
Yep.
approval, you want a final plat approved with the city and state stamp. That's what you're looking for. You also want to see a budget. You want to see bids from the different vendors, from the different contractors to make sure that that budget is tight and you understand what it's going to cost. And you want to have a healthy gap, healthy margins between what it's going to take to build this thing out and what the profit's going to be on the back end. The thing I love too is, in that scenario you just gave us where you bought this thing all in $60,000, 9,000 for the land, 51,000 for, the investment you had to make, and then you were selling it for 85,000 per lot. Well, there's 25,000 of value in cushion there that could be your potential profit. But the other thing is, if that value does erode, you can also now just become the builder yourself and have another avenue to recapture some of that value. So it's great to have kind of that built-in plan there, the built-in margin. I think one challenge people may face is just not knowing enough about this space, so they don't know the right questions to ask. when you think about other new developers come into the space and maybe make mistakes, or investors who are trying to figure this thing out, give me a question or a mistake that, may not seem obvious, but it's something that you absolutely need to know about or think about before making this decision.
Oh, man, we kind of just covered the big one, right? I mean, your biggest risk there is investing in something that the city has not approved, right? So we kind of covered that. I mean, that's really the risks. If you've got hard appraisals or some kind of comparables to know what the value is, okay, you know what your exit is, and you've got the bids for the construction cost, you know what those are going to be on the project, and you know what you're buying it for, that removes most of the risk. And of course, I've simplified it, but you want to do your due diligence on the operator and sponsor, right? Like I'm a big plan, get background checks on the sponsor. Ask to speak with 3 or 4 other limited partners that have been doing a lot of deals with them. If they can't provide you with people who've been investing with them for 7, 8 years, we've got several investors that have been with us for a long time, and they're happy to sing our praises and let them know about the deals that went well, the deals that didn't go well, how we handled it, and just give an honest evaluation of what our performance has been like over the last near decade. That's really important. If you do just those things as a limited partner, I'd say that's going to remove a lot of the risk. There's 2 things that I evaluate risk with: the deal and the sponsor. You remove the risk with the sponsor by looking at their track record. How many full cycle deals have they gone through? How many did they go through OA? Did they go through this interest rate rise? What was their performance? Um, you know, talk to people who've done business with them, do your work on the sponsor, and then the deal. And we kind of just talked about the deal. I named the things that you wanted. If you can do those 2 things, evaluate the sponsor and evaluate the deals at using the framework that we kind of just laid out, that's going to remove a lot of the risk.
Brandon, I love that. It's really great information. I think the thing that's so important too about evaluating the sponsor is that's going to relieve like 95% of those additional questions, right? Because you're never going to know the right questions to ask for every single thing, right? You need to know the
Yeah.
big ones, right? Hey, is this city approved or state approved? But if you have the right operator, they already know that's a critical thing that's going to drive value. Like you don't have
Yeah.
to sit there and be the thinker or be the strategist for the investment, which you don't want. If you're going to be a passive investor, you want to find someone who is the expert, who has that knowledge, the expertise. They've gone through multiple deals. They know where the landmines are. They know how to navigate, the various challenges that may arise. That is what you're banking on. That is the reason you invest passively, because you want someone else's expertise. So asking the right questions of that operator is probably 90 to 95% of it. And then
Mhm.
obviously you do want to evaluate the deal itself to understand, where there may be risk or concerns and how that operator plans on mitigating those risks. Brandon, great information. Really appreciate you sharing that and breaking that down. And I think those lessons are true, whether it's, new development, multifamily, self-storage, whatever, right? These are just
Yeah.
investing principles. If you're going to be passive, make sure you're betting on the right team, the sponsor. You want to make sure they know exactly what it is they're doing, but then also you want to have enough knowledge about the investment to understand where there could be potential risk and truly have a sense of, okay, is this operator doing a great job of navigating that environment? Brandon, if folks want to learn more about you or your company, they can go to hbgcapital.net. That's .net, not .com. So hbgcapital.net. Right now, we're going to transition to our round of insights. Brandon, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Yeah. So first year in business, I was wearing all the hats. I was the project manager. I was the guy answering all the phones. I was the sales rep going on the appointments. I was the guy managing and sending out all the marketing. And I learned just how much a young, motivated, single guy could work. And I realized I did not want that kind of life. I was miserable very, very quickly. And that's when I really understood the who, not how concept. I needed to start hiring people because I could not do it. Not just hire people, but hire for what I was best at last. I was very good at sales. So I hired that position last, and I quickly outsourced the positions that I hated doing the most.
Love it. All right, give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for investors.
Oh, man. I really like the book. And I really like the book 10x is easier than 2x, because it really puts things in perspective on like what your unique ability is and where you need to be focusing your time that's going to make you the most amount of money. That alone, and then if you haven't picked up a like IRR calculator or a compound interest calculator and actually mapped out your path to retirement or your path to financial freedom, there's a bunch of those out there, but I would encourage you, go grab one of those calculators and actually map out your plan.
I love it. You just hit the next question already, which was going to be the book you recommended. You just said 10X is easier than 2X, which is a great book. So we'll move on to the next one. All right. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I work out, I eat, I do a green smoothie every single day, and I cold plunge.
All right. All right. Give me your number one insight for investing in new developments.
Before forking over your hard-earned money, meet with people. Do multiple calls with them if you can. If you're thinking about creating a long-lasting relationship with a sponsor and doing multiple deals with them over 5-10 years, fly in and see them. Get a feel for them. Get a gut. Your gut does such a good job of weeding out the BS and the people who are going to take advantage of you. Lean into that more. Spend more time with the person you're considering giving money to. Like, we've flown people in town to meet with us. I like meeting people with coffee. I'm very old school. We live in a very digital world when it comes to capital raising. Send an email out and do this. And it's great. I like the relationship building because we're wanting to keep people for life. That's just here. But as an LP, try to meet with people in person more before giving your hard-earned capital. That's what has worked well for me.
I love it, man. Great tip there. All right. You are in Nashville. I was actually there earlier this year. Great city, great time. But give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Oh, man. Favorite bite to eat depends on what I'm in the mood for. If it's Asian, Sunda. If it's seafood, Eddie V's. If it's steak, it's my freezer because I import all my steak from Australia and Japan. It's the best steak you'll have in town. But if you want to go out to eat, Oak Steakhouse downtown is really, really good. Yeah, those are like my top favorite places to eat.
I love it, man. Good options there. Brandon, you gave some great information. Really enjoyed hearing your story going from corporate America in the medical device sales space, getting fired and realizing that that wasn't it. Finding yourself in real estate, making the, commitment to putting in the sweat equity, grinding on those first couple of deals, and then building a company that ultimately led to $22 million development deals, building out communities in Nashville, and giving us all the insights necessary to be successful, right? Understanding what it takes to get that land, zoned and improved, having the really 4 exit strategies when you're doing these developments, and make sure that we're asking the right questions to make sure it's a solid investment. Again, if folks want to learn more about your company, they can go to hbgcapital.net. That's hbgcapital.net. Brandon, thanks again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.